you asked about my first influences of charitable giving, and I sort of say, well, maybe it was when I went to Oberlin College. I don't know as I did a lot, but in terms of activities, I was not one of the most active people at the college, certainly, but I did feel that sense of giving back.
My first volunteerism, I think, was in Cub Scout, about Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. I ran a Cubs pack when I was, I think, 12, barely out of Cub Scouts myself, and was assistant scoutmaster by the time I was 14. Now somehow that I see, but I had wonderful parents, and a mother particularly who started in Quaker meeting, and so I started attending Quaker meeting, and I think probably some of the Quaker ideas of service have considerable to do with where we ended up. And we were both active in the United Religious Work at Cornell when we met there. And then I'm a pacifist, so that at that time it was the middle of the Korean War. So there was still a draft, and I had persuaded my draft board that I was going to do something in the national interest other than go shoot people. And we got a job with the American Friends Service Committee and went to Japan for 2.5 years.
Well, when I graduated from Oberlin, I went to Europe to take part in work camps. And I had not really attended Quaker meeting in Hartford or at Oberlin, but when I came back to they were organizing the Young Friends at Ithaca, and that's where I came. And luckily, there was a young man who had spent 3 years in an all-male college who came to the Young Friends meeting as well, Don Noel. And so, as they were organizing the Young Friends, I don't remember which one of us it was, whether I said I nominate Don Noel as chair or he said I nominate Brad Foles as vice chair, but that's what happened. And 11 months later we got married. So that was our strengthening in Quakerism. I think that really is much more in the social aspect of Quakerism than religious beliefs per se. But
both of us were involved in campus things, and that was a kind of volunteerism. And then we spent 2.5 years in Japan organizing work camps mostly for young Japanese people. And in fact, then spent almost a year coming home and agreed with the American Friends Service Committee to run a work camp in Berlin. So that by the time we got home, and began to settle down and start a family. I guess we were both sort of in the habit of doing things for somebody besides ourselves. When we came back from Japan, we said we were either going to live in the country or the city because we were interested in urban affairs. We consciously picked as a place to seek a job a city that was small enough to have urban problems and small enough we hoped that they were soluble. Not proved to be a little optimistic that. But when we moved in here in 1965, within a year or two, Brad was teaching. We knew that we were coming into a changing neighborhood. We hoped it would remain a fully integrated neighborhood, and it since has tipped to where we're the minority. And Brad went to Rawson and then to Weaver, where most of our clientele quickly became a black clientele with different kinds of needs. Isn't that true?
Yeah, you sort of, when we first came back, we lived with my mother in West Hartford, and then we moved out to the country, but then began to say, we really are Hartford. Don was working at the Hartford Times, that we really are Hartford oriented, and that is where we came in, and we drove around this neighborhood, and we looked at 2 houses, and this was one of them, and here we are 48 years later, still in the same house, and so feeling, that we really dedicated to the city of Hartford. Yeah.
Both of us, I think, felt that this was an important neighborhood, and that stabilizing it was one of the things that we could help do. And although the racial ethnic complexion of the community has changed, it remains Blue Hills, the largest homeowning community in Hartford, with something like 65% home ownership. And we were glad over the years to take part in that. I was secretary of the Blue Hills Civic Association, and Brad has been block captain since.
Well, when they were having strong block captains, yes, and involved in education. I mean, that was then I decided to run for the Board of Education, and I retired in '92, And in '93, I ran for the board and was elected. And so I'm just now finally saying I'm not going to run again.
I got involved in the Civic Association because a young man who was still around, Sam Saylor, encountered a handicapped person had been attacked by kids and badly hurt. And Sam said, we got to do something about that. And we really he resurrected the Blue Hill Civic Association to deal with the growing, then very small, but growing problem of youth that needed help. And so the Civic Association really was brought back from its earlier role in order to deal specifically with some of the problems with kids. And we both thought that was important and had time to work on it. And so we've spent a lot of time, the two of us, working on the Civic Association, thanks to Sam Saylor. We created a donor-advised fund many years ago, and our daughter Emily and her son and her husband Tim joined with us in deciding every year how to allocate it. And just the other day we were together, and Timmy came up with an idea,
But which was the Civil Liberties, American Civil Liberties Union, that Don has been very active in, and that we have given to before. But that this came from Timmy, and I thought that was very, very.
But that has also gone on their suggestion, for instance, to scholarship or scholarship prize money at Classical Magnet, where Tim was principal for a number of years.
I think TJ is a kind of a young man who's is giving back and helping other young people. He's on one side of the family. There's a group of cousins, and he's the oldest one. And instead of saying, I don't want to play with these young kids, I mean, he really is someone to be a leader for that group of young people, which is very important. I have a stack of cards like this of groups that we support. Those are not big gifts, but when we come from the Hartford Foundation, it is a fairly substantial gift, and you don't want it to be all divided up into 10 different little things. I understand that and so we tend to look at what are a group that we would want to give to and would want to give a larger amount to, and so that's really, and as I look through the list of what we've given since 2002, when we first gave the money to the foundation, they are most of them Hartford area opportunities or educational colleges, to our college and University of Hartford and Deep Springs College, which was where that all-male school that Don went to, and so that. But things like the Hartford Public Library, which I'm right now I'm the library board. I'm a member of the library board, and those are the kinds of things that we tend to be able to give those larger grants to, and feel very, very good about that, and was very pleased to hear our son-in-law Timmy, speak up and look at one of those that was certainly dear to our hearts. To give to this year.
The foundation is not only an organization that does a lot of good things, it also invests very well, because we added only once to the money that we originally put into our donor advised fund, and every year they came back, because we're spending the interest, and every year they come back and say, you have a little more to spend. It's spectacular and fun. When I think of our donor advised fund, it's been very heavily educational. My alma mater, Brad's alma mater, Hartford Schools, Capital Classical Magnet, and some Quaker concerns as well. All of these are using the money, we hope, to sort of target educational needs that can be addressed, and it feels good.
One of them, and I sort of laughed at it I guess in 2007, it was to the Connecticut Bicycle Alliance, which in fact is coming up this next week, I believe, is a bike ride around the parks of city of Hartford, and I took part in it one year. Way back then, I read the announcement this time and said no, and I'll see them going by our house in Keeney Park and say, oh yes, but it's gotten to be huge and going much faster than it did when I really sort of chuckled when I thought, well, this was something that I supported, because I really
And it was in its formative years.
In formative years, and I'm really thrilled with how many more people are bicycling. I still have my bicycle downstairs, but I don't bicycle very often. But it's certainly, I think it's been a wonderful change in our society to see more people on bicycles. Go ahead.
One of the agencies that a very small gift, but Tim Sullivan, who was then principal of Classical Magnet, said, couldn't we use this money to set up a fund from which their prizes would go, and he insisted we name it the Brad Noel Editorial Prize. And so I'm involved every year in helping them decide the student in the student paper who's written the best editorial, and I go and give them a little plaque. And it's one of the ways that, one of many gifts that Tim Sullivan has gotten from one person or another, including I think some other donor-advised funds at the foundation, all aimed at giving kids more incentive to do things together.
No. And really, I think that's one of the ways Don gets back in the schools, but I certainly love to be. I was over at Rawson School just yesterday, and like to get into the schools. Even though I'm going to get off the board, I think that they'll see me, whether they want to or not.
There are a number of organizations that we've supported over the years that we would like to have our support continue even when we can't keep giving it directly. And the foundation is one of those. And we may try to earmark it, or we may just say to the foundation, you do great things with the money, use the money. I think it's been meaningful to us to have been here in the Blue Hills section of Hartford and to have been a small part of stabilizing the neighborhood and helping it develop some infrastructure that had been there before. And part of that is that Brad spent all of her working years at Weaver High School meeting some of the same needs, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and I'm said I still keep in touch with former students, because people live in the community, and so that means a lot to me, I think. And
she comes home every day and says, I was out, and somebody came up to me and said, Mrs. Noel, and she says, I remembered them. Maybe you remember their name.
I know. Well, I don't always, but still, it's very nice to be part of it. I mentioned Oberlin. I'm president of my class at Oberlin, so I'm planning. So I guess we stay involved even at our advanced age, and feel certainly very blessed that we have good health. We realize that is crucial. And that's what means that we're both together. That's what means we can stay in this wonderful community and work in the garden, and eat vegetables out of our garden and enjoy the community.
I'm not sure that we started out to do this, but over the years we've done enough things that we find enormous satisfaction in being of use to others. And at our age, it is wonderful to be involved in so many things that we don't have time to play bridge.
We are very, very fortunate to have the money to be able to give away at this point. It's because my husband is a great manager of money. We are children of the Depression, and so we don't have to go off and spend the next thing that comes along, and so we feel very fortunate to be able to be in that position, because I know, there are so many people who live from month to month, and they're not sure they have enough money to go on to the next month, and I'm sure that there's some people even in this neighborhood that are in that kind of a situation.
But one of the things we did when we first were married was to say our goal really ought to be to give something like 10% of our after-tax income away to somebody. And it's been every year we get together and we say we can't take that one on, or this one needs more money. Mm-hmm. And it is terribly satisfying to be able to say we have, as Brad says, we have the money to give. We have made sure that there is enough money to give. And it's just very satisfying to think of all the little things that we're helping.
Mm-hmm.